Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews, this being a show where I talk about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Billy the Kid. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we pick up with Billy in the aftermath of breaking out of jail, and it's like, cool. I did like how he started it off where it's like, yeah, Billy's kind of on his own, like, I think, out of his mind, dehydrated. We kind of, know that fully because of the context later on of understanding how he got there. But, we rewind to find out how he got there. And this is where he gets introduced to Alias. I like that, it's like, oh, every time he got captured, he'd give them a different name. It's like, oh, are you using Alias? And he's like, yes, because my name is Mr. Alias. So I just thought that was interesting. But also, like, introducing Alias the way he is, it's like, yeah, seems a little wild. Kind of a little, like, not all there. And I thought it was interesting, too, because he latched on to Billy when Billy was like, yeah, I'm running for the law. He's like, well, that's the best damn reason for you to be around here. Ha, ha, ha. And just, like, when he bursts into laughter sometimes, I'm like, oh, this guy seems kind of unstable. Even to the point Billy kept looking at the knife, and he was like, oh, you thought I was going to kill you? If I was going to kill you, you already be dead. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm messing with you. I'm like, and he's laughing. I'm like, ha, ha. So he ends up helping Billy get a job with, that rancher, Mr. Hooker. And I love that. I mean, once again, it's like, it could have been weeks that we jump cut through. Well, we know that he ended up, we know that that was 4 weeks earlier, so you don't know what the time frame is, how long it took them to get to certain places and stuff, but how long was he working as a rancher when he ultimately did get the job? Because then immediately afterwards, it's like, yeah, I hooked you up this job, but I need your help stealing horses from this dude because he makes all the money and I don't. I was like in the context of the episode, it's like, I just got the job and you're already making me like, I mean, to be fair, at least in the case of the guy, back in New Mexico, it was like, right, that guy didn't give Billy the job and he turned out to be kind of a crappy person anyway, and Billy needed the money, so it was for his family's sake, so it's a little different. But it's also like, Billy's like, I just got this job, I'm trying to at least be a decent enough person because that's who my mom saw me as, so I don't want to do it. I even thought it was interesting, the guy was like, have you killed anyone? He was like, not yet. He's like, right, there are people who steal cattle and such, so I need to make sure that sometimes you can't even talk to them. You just kind of have to kill them. So, and also making Billy sing that song. He's like, oh, sing me something Irish. I was like, okay, that was weird. But I think it swayed Alice, which I thought that was kind of interesting. I guess Billy's got that rugged outlaw thing going for him because for her to help him out later on like that, giving him that hairpin like that, I thought was kind of interesting. But it's interesting to know, too, that the first person Billy's ever killed ends up being out of self-defense. Because they end up stealing horses. He gave the horse he stole to that, was it Mr. Cahill? And the guy was like, oh, I used to be in the army. I guess it was like I didn't realize that was like an army fort or whatever that they were stealing the horses from. I mean, they did say like, oh, this is Camp Grant, but it didn't even correlate in my head. I was like, oh, you stole from the army. And he's like, as an ex-officer, the episode, it went the way I kind of expected. I thought that was going to be the thing of like, oh, like we used to shoot people. Like Billy's like, do you not want the business? Like, I never said that. I thought like, okay, he's putting his issues aside, but it's like, no, it's like you doing that is very, I guess, like he's a patriotic person because it's like, right, you're stealing from the army. I was a man that was in the army, so it's like, I guess in his mind it was almost like stealing from him. I guess maybe he just got drunk and just, I don't know. The fact is he confronted Billy like that. Obviously not a good person, talking to that guy like, oh, you talking to me, Darky? You're like, okay. I don't know, maybe you were just a drunk douchebag. Maybe it's just because, right, maybe being in the army kind of screwed you up a little bit, and maybe that's why you were kind of, maybe you were drinking to compensate, and you were kind of a dick. And Billy was just like, yeah, just leave me alone. Like, I told you I got it in New Mexico, just leave me alone. And the guy just kept pushing and pushing, and it ends in a scuffle, and the guy reached... To be fair, the guy reached for his gun. Billy did kill him in self-defense. And everyone in the bar was like, yeah, you probably should get out of here. It's like, everyone in the bar was kind of on Billy's side. It's like, the guy came at you, he was drawing his gun on you, you defended yourself, so you need to get out of here. So, and Billy left. But he came back because he remembered what his mom said. It's like, his mom, you looked at me, you saw the good, and I need your help right now. I need to talk to you. He's like, I know what you would say to me right now, that I have to basically face the consequences. of what I did, because she believed in the good that he did, and he's like, yeah, I killed that guy out of self-defense, but it's still the thing of, I killed someone, and it shook him to his core. It's kind of interesting. And I mean, even that situation in the very first episode, when it's like more present, you know, when it's him older, he killed that guy again when he's like, I gave the guy multiple times, do not pull the trigger. Did it once, do not pull pull twice, do not, and he was going for a third, and Billy had to put him down. It's like, Billy gave him ample opportunity to back down. Home dude wouldn't listen, you know? And at least that guy, he was like, I'm going to make sure that guy gets a proper burial. Maybe that's just because his stance and perspective on things. I mean, maybe because he's like, right, I understand why you're coming after me. At least that Cahill situation is like, you kind of like went wild for no reason, so. But I wasn't expecting Billy to come back, especially with your situation of like, yeah, you are a man that is kind of on the run, but he turned himself in because he's like, right, I did do that, but it was in self-defense. But the judge is kind of like, yeah, but you did, you know, try to rob someone, and on top of that, you did escape from prison, so that has to kind of be considered. But Alice kind of kissing him like that, I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's like, oh, wow. And then it's like, oh, she slipped him a hairpin to get out. And of course, he's going to run into Mr. Upson. You can't help but be like, it's a little suspicious that every time you turn around, Upson's like this recurring character popping up like that. It's probably going to be the sad situation of like, he's ultimately going to end up dying. Or maybe he's end up being someone that's tied to Billy's story in the regards of when Billy will ultimately die, because you know, it is how his story ends. So of course, they're going to play into that. Once again, I don't know if this is like a one-off like mini-series or whether they would have plans for multiple seasons or not. I definitely could feel like this could definitely be a multiple season thing, but where things are currently, because I think there's only 8 episodes. I mean, because I know a couple episodes are already out by the time like I'm doing episode 4, but it's like, I want to say, I remember seeing 8 on like IMDb, like when I first started, when I looked up like how many episodes it is. It might be longer, but I want to say 8, but I could be mistaken. So I once again, I haven't read into it. Kind of don't want to know, just want to take the series as it is, but it's something that's obviously going to be in the back of my mind. So it's kind of more of a rhetorical question I'm asking, but I just get the feeling like Upson's going to be that journalist he interacts with, and is like, ultimately when Billy does die, Upson's the one that's going to tell the legend of Billy the Kid. Tell people who he really was. It's like, hey, because Upson sees the good in Billy, but then there's also the part of me that's like, there's that possibility, or it's the possibility of Upson's going to end up being a bad person. Like, you're going to find out that this old Santa Fe ring that he's trying to take down, maybe. Well, why would people push him as much as they do if he wasn't someone trying to expose the Santa Fe ring? It might just be a thing, because I just think it'd be interesting, out of anyone in Billy's life, he will be the constant. Like, Billy's met him, you know, prior to his brother dying and his mom dying, and he's like, yeah, this guy's been a constant in his life from time to time, but he also, much like Kathleen, believes in Billy. It's like, oh no, I know that you're a good and decent person, I understand that you killed that person out of self-defense, that you're not just a straight-up murderer, but he's like, right, if you do get out of here, you will be forever looking over your shoulder with one eye, Billy, and you'll always have to have your gun in your hand, so. And he's like, this won't be the last time we meet, Mr. Upson. He's like, damn sure. And I'm like, I'm curious to see which way they go. Like, I'm leaning more towards like hey, he's going to be a friend and he's going to be the one to tell your story. But who knows? Upson might end up getting killed by the Santa Fe ring, and maybe that's what pushes Billy. Then it's like, right, there's enough wrong in this world, and if I have to do a little wrong to make things right, because he'd even talked to the judge about it. It's like, right, my family came to America because of, like, you know, hoping things would be fair and just treatment. And he's like, that's all I'm asking for. Yeah, I made a mistake, but I killed someone in self-defense. Once again, it's like, I went to rob that place, but I never actually stole anything. I never hurt nobody, so why am I getting the heaviest punishment? It's kind of like, it doesn't matter. You were still in the process of, I don't know if that really counts. I mean, maybe, I don't even know how that would play out law-wise present day, like in real life, like, not, I say in real life, but like present day, like 2022, like in law-wise, how would that play out if you broke into someone's place and didn't steal anything or hurt anyone? You still broke in, so, but it still probably wouldn't be as harsh of a punishment as he probably, because they were probably throwing a book at him as if he hurt someone or stole something, but regardless. So, but I think it is the thing of like, right, life in America isn't as easy as people, you know, it's not the freedom and American dream that I think a lot of people at this particular time thought it would be, especially immigrants. So, but yeah, he ultimately ends up breaking out because of that hairpin. I didn't talk about it, but I thought it was interesting the last time Billy saw Alias. Whereas, like, Alias was like, yeah, I'm watching you sleep so peacefully like a baby. It's like, yeah, just like you said, you're like, oh, what will happen if Mr. Hooker found out? Well, he found out about the horses, so I shot him, and I'm leaving. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. He was like, well, I'm sure he's just out there, so I doubt this is the last time Billy's going to run into him. I think they're just doing a lot of setup of, like, yeah, these are people Billy's eventually going to cross paths again in the criminal circuit. So you kind of felt bad for Billy getting robbed because it's like, right, they took his horse because it's like, yeah, you're a white man and you took this indigenous people's land. So it's like, right, you took our land. You're lucky all we're doing is taking your horse and sparing your life. Which I wonder what Billy, I mean, I guess even if Billy made the argument, it's still probably like yeah, but you still look like the people. You know, it's probably not going to be the same thing, even if you are an immigrant yourself. And because once again, I think this is still at point in time where, like, even Irish people are kind of treated badly because you're almost like, you're not the same thing like as American white. Like, it's not the same thing, so even Irish people got treated badly. But it's, once again, it's not like let's compare, like, struggles. I'm not having that conversation, but it's just like, I think the Irish people went through their own struggles in that same regard as well, like their own persecution. If I'm remembering history right, which I could be completely wrong in that regard. But I wonder if Billy had said, like, yeah, I'm Irish, I'm an immigrant, I'm not from this country. I don't know if that softened the blow anyone. It's like, you know, you still came here and you're still living on a land that's not yours. To be fair, he's struggling too, but it's like, yeah, don't come to us about struggles, homie. It might be that type of thing. But, you know, and I guess he wasn't trying to fight it either. It's like, I mean, everyone's trying to survive. Everyone's trying to take, you know, trying to get what's theirs. You know, and in their case, it's like, let's take back what was ours and was taken in the most brutal way, you know. So Billy's walking and just kind of stumbled out. You can tell dehydrated, delirious, because he's trying to shoot tumbleweed. I was wondering, I was like, okay, who's going to be the one to save him? And he meets Barbara, and I was like, huh, now in retrospect, it's like, does Barbara, because she's like, oh, you're pretty famous, that's why she knows Billy's name. But I also was like, was that her or was that someone else that said, like, oh, he's pretty famous? Oh, yeah, I think it was her that said, like, oh, you don't know how famous you are. He's already gaining a bit of a reputation for himself. But, like, the fact that I forgot how she said she knew his name was Bill. Because the whole him being wanted thing and you don't know how famous you are, that conversation happened later. So, but now in retrospect, we find out, like, she's connected to Jesse. So, and I think she hid that from him on purpose, because it's like, yeah, you probably wouldn't be too happy knowing, like, one of the people that probably saved him was Jesse, but because it's like, right, we're old pals and everything. It's like, well, Jesse did put him in an unfavorable position, and Jesse did, like, when he was locked up, Jesse probably didn't come visit him. Jesse probably ran himself, because he's like, yeah, I'm not about to get in trouble, so he ran, kind of left Billy holding the bag. So, but I thought it was interesting how things kind of hit off between him and Barbara. It was interesting because Barbara referenced being a Calvinist. I did a little looking into that. Once again, I'm not the most religious person. I'm not the most savvy when it comes to theology, but there was also that line where she was saying something of the state of, like, oh, they were Satanists. They were basically, no, they worshiped the devil or something like that. And I was like, what was that? Maybe that was her referencing, like, her parents weren't the good believers that they kind of claimed to be, that they were kind of devils themselves, that they weren't good people. Maybe that's what that was in reference to. Because, I mean, once again, I don't think Calvinists have anything to do with that. Once again, I'm ignorant on the subject, so I could be wrong. But she wanted this. Maybe it's because she was viewed that way because she didn't agree with all of that. Because, like, from my understanding, it's just kind of like the words I saw was, like, you know, the wholehearted belief in the sovereignty of God, which I was like, don't most a lot of religions kind of flow that way. So once again, that's just like a quick look through I'd seen of, like, I didn't really go into the ins and outs. Obviously, like, deep diving into a religion, that's going to take a while. So, But I thought it was interesting, like, she, like, likes being around outlaws, which I thought was kind of interesting. I'm like, oh, okay. So, I mean, I guess there's kind of an appeal to it that is kind of interesting, but which almost, like, makes you go, like, present day, how, like, oh, like, some people are like, oh, you're a serial killer? Ooh, that's hot, or something. Like, maybe it's kind of almost that similar thought, but it's like, I think it's more so about the rebelism of being an outlaw is what it more so is, of like, yeah, the freedom to do whatever you want, not being adherent to anyone else but yourself. I think maybe that's what, maybe that's what it was more so about, how in her religious family she was kind of always held down, and now hanging around these outlaws and this gang, she's able to kind of be free. And I love, Billy talked about his family. They were kind of rebels, and and I brought up earlier, talks about why they came to this country in the first place, that him and Barbara are similar in the regard of they both, they're both here, they're in their current circumstances because looking for freedom, hopes of freedom, but then they kind of do their thing and they spend time together. It's like, because the gang isn't going to be back for another week, and I'm like, that's the fact that she kind of makes a point of that. I'm like, are you with someone in the gang? Because she never expressly said, like, oh, I'm single. It's like, oh, let's have her fun. But then the moment the guys come back, she's just kind of a little, I'm like, you're going to find out she's with one of them. And it's like, right. She kind of fell for Billy, but it's like, right, because, oh, you're an outlaw, but you are also good. Maybe the person she's with, which I'm assuming it's Jesse, because the moment Jesse gets there, she's like, I'm sorry. So I don't know whether that's in correlation to, actually, I'm with Jesse, I didn't tell you I'm with somebody, or the fact is she's like, she probably knew because Jesse was like, hey, this is Billy, I know him. And she's like, I this entire week, I never actually told you that one of the people here is Jesse, and I know you probably feel a certain way about Jesse because he left you behind. So that's an interesting place to kind of leave this episode off, and I'm curious to see where things kind of take us from there. Billy doesn't look too happy to see Jesse. I mean, they were friends, but it's still like, yeah, you kind of left me high and dry. So where things kind of go from there, especially with the Barbara situation, because it's like, it does seem like it felt like Billy fell in, like, because him and Alice, it seemed like that was just kind of a nice thing, but it seems like he legitimately fell in love with Barbara, and I think she feels the same way. But I think it's like, yeah, I'm kind of with someone. Maybe I'm misreading, but I kind of got that inkling, like, maybe she's with Jesse, but we'll see. Definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us in this next stage of Billy's life, and, the route that he decides to go down after everything that he's going through and experienced. We'll ultimately have to wait and see. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.